Fan, 10 years ago, you told your wife you wanted to be a filmmaker. What was going on in your life at that time?
Yeah. Woke up one day 10 years ago and shocked her by going, "Hey, I think I want to make movies." And she was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And I think what was going on in my life was, uh, I just, I was a photographer at the time, and I just loved stories. And at the time, I was telling stories of one frame. Then I was like, "Oh, it'd be interesting if I just could write a story, write a movie." And I didn't know what the first thing about what making a movie is all about, and I wasn't even one that watched a lot of movies, and she was one in our relationship that watched movies, and but I wanted to tell stories, and so I went to Amazon. No, I went to this place in Dallas. It's called Half Price Books, and I would buy as many books I could about screenwriting or movies or what directors wrote, and I would just read that and get my hands on as much scripts as I could. And I spent the next year or two just writing. And that at that time the DSLR camera came about, and Canon came out, and you start doing great videos. And I was like, oh, this is seemed like a natural transition from being a photographer. Now I could be a videographer. So that was sort of the start of it all. My kind of desire to change things up, tell more stories in a different way. And then she was like, "Oh my gosh, you just started your photography career and it's going good. Why don't you open up a restaurant too and do everything that's percentage wise difficult to do?" And so I just became disciplined and woke up each morning and try to write a sentence. So, and then 10 years later, you got to film.
And previously, were you an early riser, or was this a new routine you were getting into?
I think I am personally an early riser, especially with writing. For me personally, I find that from 6 to 9 a.m. I write best that time, and it's a struggle after 9 a.m. So I think it's because I get up right away, everything's quiet, and if something's brewing that night before, I have a better clarity of it. Some people work at different hours, but I just found over the years that was my sweet spot, because I think it felt like alone. Nothing could bother me, and I didn't want to be on the computer, and I could be quiet and things like that. So that was my sweet spot. Though I don't wake up at 6 every morning. It just depends if I'm working on a project. I would get up that early.
Don't feel bad. Charles Bukowski would start at noon. So.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So,
but what do you think happens after 9 a.m.? Is it just something mental in your brain?
I think it's because of a couple hours of art. I think what happens, especially for me, I was, because your brain's always trying to solve problems, solve what does this character have? What's the story? What's happening? So it's almost like you're constantly doing a Rubik's Cube and not getting one side done, and then that's how I always felt. So after 3 or 4 hours, there's fatigue, I think, for me. So I would take a break, or I would just force myself to work on something. And I took it kind of seriously because I think I got tired of not taking everything else so not seriously in my life. And I was like, what would I wake up each day that I would enjoy and try to get better at? And writing was something that was personal, for me, that no one could take away. So I didn't have to wait for a producer or an actor, or if I was in a band, I didn't have to wait for the drummer or the bassist, or I could just get up and write, and I think that was so freeing, and that's what I enjoyed about the idea of writing a script versus a novel. A script in my head was like a 100-page poem, and I always wanted to be a poet for some reason, you know, and I knew that each word had a lot to it. You know, you can't waste a word or a space. You know, so that's how I think I got better. My scripts weren't so tight. They were just these things. But I think now, 10 years later, they, you know, cliches are correct for a reason. You know, they keep saying like "kill your babies." Like, what's that mean? I was like, oh, that's such a great line or a great scene or great dialogue. They're like, oh, it just doesn't fit. You just kind of you got to knock it out. And I got a little bit better of not crying when I have to kill my own little babies, but writing is something I enjoy. You know? So waking up each morning, I get excited for that. But then, you know, I'm not a robot, so I get fatigued and tired out.
Does something have to have meaning, like an intense meaning for you to want to take time to do it?
That's good. I think, yeah, I think so. It had to mean something for me or something for me to investigate. But I think as I get older, I'm really investigating myself. I think that's what I'm trying to find. Even with these stories, with all these different characters, I think it's like, it's a way of me trying to understand what I'm about. And again, that's very ego-driven. Being a director in this is all like this, but you know, but I think I'm trying to see how I relate into this world and what inspires me, what makes me scared, what makes me happy, and you know, if I have a certain feeling, I just hope there's another human being that possibly might have the same feeling. So that's how. You know, your work might be able to connect. I think if someone out there, you know, feels the same way, and that's all you could hope for as any artist, is try to get what you have in your brain, your heart out, and then if it comes out correctly, maybe someone might understand that. You know.
And climbing the corporate ladder is ego-driven too. So you know that artists get a bad rap and writers, and I understand that there's a lot of internal stuff that comes out in people's work, but you know, people climbing a corporate ladder also.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was talking to a friend who was a scientist prior to becoming a filmmaker, and he was like, the cutthroat world of being a scientist and getting that research grant, getting this, taking credit for certain findings and things. It's just another thing. Hey, that might be a movie idea.
Wow, yeah, that's true.
The black swan of a science world.